Hey everybody, welcome once again to the Road to the ProcureTech Cup, the show that's all about demonstrating the art of the possible with procurement technology to procurement professionals. So this is episode 18 on the Road to the ProcureTech Cup this week. We've got Graphite coming on the show to demo their supplier management platform, so very excited about that. Before we get into the details here though, I will bring on my co-host for the week, Sheena Smith. Sheena, thanks for being here. She's Senior Vice President at RiseNow, your partner to design, build, and operate next-gen procurement and supply chain functions. So how's it going, Sheena?
That's what we do, Joel. Thanks for having me. As you can see, I'm not Gabe Perez. So stepping in for Gabe this week, he's at baseball camp with his eldest, and I'm really excited to spend time with the community and to see Graphite.
Yeah, and I learned a couple things about you this week, notably that you're a chess player and a wine connoisseur, at least in training in both. Did I understand that correctly?
That's true. Don't challenge me too hard on chess.com. I can only handle so many games at a time. But yeah, studying for my WSET level 2 right now. So I've done level 1, but diving deeper into grapes.
Cool. Very cool. I don't know what that is, but it sounds impressive. So I'll make sure.
Another time.
That sort of thing. Yeah, so I will remind everybody before we bring on the team from Graphite that we're on the road to the ProcureTech Cup. The journey continues here. So January 17th, we're meeting Graphite. We had Viridian on last week and a bunch of other solutions during the fall. The tournament is at the end of March here on LinkedIn. And we've got 35 spots that are still open for ProcureTech firms that want to participate. So if you're interested, reach out. The spots will open on February 12th. So that being said, let's bring on the main event. We've got both Conrad Smith, who's the founder and CEO of Graphite, on the show today, and Luke Wolf, who's a solution engineer at Graphite as well. Conrad based out of Utah and Luke out of Tennessee. So thanks so much for being on the show today.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's get straight into the content here, the agenda for everybody. We've got the company overview that Conrad will give us, their unique value proposition at Graphite, the ideal customer profile that they work with, and then we'll dive straight into the meat of the solution demo for as long as possible. At the end of the demo, Sheena will pepper the team with some tough questions in the Let's Get Real segment, and then we'll finish off with the mapping to the ProcureTech market map that I bring out every week so that you can understand where the solution fits into the market. So that being said, Conrad, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Great to be with you. It wasn't that long ago I was on the other side of the camera here. I'm a procurement leader. I was at Intel and Adobe before that. So almost 30 years leading procurement teams. The big problem that we're addressing is that the supplier management, and a big part of that is onboarding, has completely changed. I came from the days of the fax machine. Yep, that makes me a bit of a dinosaur. But that was 1 to 2 days to onboard a supplier. If you could sell supplier onboarding in 1 to 2 days today, that's really what we do. It will change the world. The introduction of risk and compliance has really changed how you do supplier management these days, particularly in indirect, right? It used to just be collecting bank data. Now you got to collect a whole lot more. And it's not uncommon, very, very common. I suspect most of you are in this space are taking a couple of weeks to a couple of months. We've met companies that are taking up to 3 months to onboard and go through the supplier ad process. This is driven because you may not be using a fax machine, but you're using a portal or a process that is really as one-dimensional as a fax machine. Email is a little bit better than fax, sure, but we're getting this information from suppliers to us. Think of a certificate of insurance. You get it from your supplier. It expires next week. It's kind of a monkey on your back to even know when it expires and get back to them again. This one-directional sharing of information is really a disaster. Think about how much easier it is to manage supplier data if they're actually managing it for themselves and they're managing it for all their customers in one place, right? It's a game changer for you. It's a game changer for them. This is LinkedIn on steroids for company data instead of just personal data. And we all know how LinkedIn has changed how we approach resumes and hiring and all these other things, right? This is a very cool approach. It's patented and we do it like nobody else does. You will hear people say networks. And we'll talk a little bit later about what one network type is versus another network type. But this is not a one-to-one transactional network like a Reba network, a Coupa network, and frankly, all the other procurement networks. Like, this is true many-to-many real-time data. Your supplier changes their data, you are notified immediately, not next time you send out a form that they fill out. So inside of this golden record that's created, we have the ability to bring together all of the vendor managed data. Your team, of course, is managing and creating data to help them, to help through the process. And then third-party data is involved as well. Whether you're using Dun & Bradstreet or Rapid Ratings or EcoVadis, any of these tools integrate directly into this one pane of glass that identifies everything that you need to know to onboard, do the background checks and due diligence, and then manage that supplier over the entire life cycle of your relationship with them. This is a big deal, right? We're all struggling with this. It takes a lot of time. We almost always see a 70 to 80% reduction in the amount of time to get through the process, but it takes less issues. You have better data, and we can intake this whole process in a way that really streamlines things. It guides your supplier, guides your requesters to the right suppliers. I always say the best onboarding is no onboarding at all. Use your preferred suppliers. Who has a great way to do that? Well, Graphite does. So who needs Graphite? If you have a procurement team and you're working with suppliers, you need Graphite, right? Almost everybody has a slow and manual process. Hackett says that 50% of all companies are still onboarding via email, and half of the rest of them are really unhappy with their existing P2P, S2P, or ERP solution here. You have a large supply base. You have a lot of complexity around the data. If you're concerned about risk or fraud, which, by the way, all of us in procurement have experienced these things, then you need Graphite. That takes us
so
through
Conrad, like, you don't differentiate between.
Sorry,
Conrad, I was just going to ask if that doesn't differentiate between enterprise or mid-market or all that. You just see the problem as being, for anybody and everybody that we all have the same problem, right? Regardless of our size.
Yes, everyone has the problem for sure. I mean, with larger enterprises, we see enterprises that have many, many ERPs. I mean, one of our customers has 38 ERPs. Imagine onboarding suppliers sometimes dozens of times, even though you're using them once, because you're putting them in all these ERPs, all these regions, all these countries. So the problem kind of gets bigger as the organization gets more complicated. But a small organization, we're all onboarding. Like, I'm part of a small organization. I onboard suppliers. I need to collect their data for audit purposes. I need to run them through a risk process. It could just be commercial data, and we have customers that are small and large that you just use Graphite to onboard commercial data, but almost everyone's doing risk as well. So small organization, I mean, we target kind of 500 million and above, but we have plenty of customers that are below that just take advantage of all the best practices. We have the libraries and templates and forms and fields, because we're validating all this data. There's just so much work that procurement teams are doing themselves today that once you have a true network in the hub of the network, you do that work for them. I don't want to pick on Coupa, but if you go buy Coupa, you're going to have to create the form to onboard the supplier for, a supplier in Japan or any of these countries. Like, you create those forms. We have all these forms and templates, and they're all localized and translated and ready to go. And as data comes into those forms, we validate all that data to make sure it's right. So that kind of validation and high quality data matters no matter what size you are, because you're going to be sending money out the door.
All right, and so from a company overview perspective, I'm guessing we're good. We're ready to get to the demo.
Let's dive in and show the application. It really is beautiful.
All right. Yeah, very cool. And I like the pointing on the content, right? So I'm sure we'll see that, but I think that has high value, right? If you have an empty tool versus a full tool that you can just pick and choose what you need, it makes a big difference for deployment and onboarding. So Luke, take it away.
Absolutely. So we want to start with intake, right? Everyone in procurement is wanting to make the requester experience better. I mean, I think that's, as far as, measuring and being evaluated, we want our stakeholders to be happy. So what Graphite is providing is a very easy and simple to use front door for procurement related requests. So you can see here, I've got my search bar. I can search for products and services and suppliers and information like that. But what we want to provide requesters is within a couple of clicks, get them where they need to go. Is that onboarding a new supplier? Is that interacting with an existing supplier, right? A new contract or, a purchase requisition, and we need to kind of guide them to the right place. That's what we're providing here. So you can see, in my guided help, I've put in an example of like, hey, I need, some individual office supplies. Let's not onboard a supplier for that. So we work with our customers to provide clear instructions and provide, links and other material to, simply, if I need computer accessories, that's going to pop me out into, Amazon Business over here. And we can define those business rules to make it as easy as possible for your requesters. If it is a type of request that is going to require, a new supplier, we can work to design simple questions that collect the information that procurement needs, that will help, kind of get them in the right place. So, hey, how much are you spending with this? That could have a completely different path. Is there any data being processed? Are we able to use a preferred supplier here? And that's what Conrad was mentioning. We can keep your database up to date with preferred suppliers and put those in front of your requesters. So yeah, if I need some marketing software, we have Adobe. Great. Maybe I can use Adobe and I can have some instructions and engage sourcing and submit my request. Very easy. Now, to get into the bread and butter of Graphite, let's say we can't use a preferred supplier. We need to onboard a new supplier. We can change all these actions on what we call a category card to show them, okay, here's what you need to do next. Here's some instructions. If you do need someone to hold your hand, here's who can do that. This category card is super cool, right? Because we all work in procurement. We negotiate with suppliers. We put category strategies together. This is where that strategy comes to action, right? So often those negotiations and strategies are put in place and nobody can actually take action on them in the front. This takes that front stage for your requesters to know where they need to go and what they need to do. Yep, absolutely. And again, this is just the front door. This is going to, go ahead, Joel.
Now I was just going to say, like, it's very interesting to me because, we're focusing on supplier onboarding, supplier masters, et cetera. But the first thing you show us is intake, right? So my head immediately goes to, I'm guessing this is really, really useful in organizations where they don't have any ProcureTech, right? And you guys are coming in as that first piece. But in organizations where there's already ProcureTech, they might have an existing intake solution. You can also kind of be in the background there for the supplier management piece, I would imagine, as well.
That's absolutely right. So yeah, if you need intake, if you need that front door, we can be that and create a very simple experience for your end customers. But yeah, that's exactly right. If you have these process tools and other tools in place there, we can be that supplier data management, onboarding, supplier relationship management tool that works very easily, in conjunction with those other process and intake tools.
Joel, we didn't set out here saying, hey, we want to be another orchestration tool. That's kind of the hype of today. Everyone wants to do that. What happened is our customers said, how do we communicate to our customers all of these decisions and strategies so they don't have to do onboarding? Like, that's a really unique and valuable thing to do that we all struggle with in procurement. And so our customers pushed us upstream into this step. And what we've built is exceptionally cool. So like anybody that has procurement tech, they're going to pick the intake and orchestration capability from their tech stack that works for them the best. And we have an amazing one that can fill the need for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to point it out, right? Because it's very, very cool, right? And I see more and more organizations going in this direction because the lion's share of the market is people who don't have a tool at all, right? So if you're able to give them at least those basics that allows them to get a really cool ROI on your tool without having to get other things, it's definitely value add. So I'm all in, Conrad.
Yeah,
I was especially thinking kind of lower in the mid market. This must be really impactful for people.
Absolutely.
Well, What I see in this space that's really tricky is, a lot of times we'll see a Coupa or another P2P, or there will be tech in place, but it's still confusing because that tech doesn't answer all the questions, right? You don't get your laptop from Coupa, you get your laptop from IT. So it's really important to kind of help understand and guide that person to the right process. Luke showed links, but we actually have full integrations out to all of these other tools to really streamline things for the requester and the back office.
That's right. But getting into the network differentiation here, I do want to highlight this. If I type in a supplier, like Conrad mentioned, if this supplier already has a profile on Graphite, this goes from onboarding to really connection, right? We're bypassing the onboarding. You might ask, our customers might ask some additional questions to these suppliers that they haven't answered before. But if the supplier already has a profile, they already put their tax ID in, they already put their banking information in, their address. Why are we asking for that over and over and over again? And suppliers are pulling out their hair, and it's extending our process as procurement professionals. So what Graphite is doing is highlighting, okay, hey, there's some suppliers in here. Which one of these are you looking for? If you can't find it, that's fine. Let's invite them to Graphite. But if your supplier is already on Graphite, great. Let's understand a little bit more about what you're looking to do with that supplier. And then we will work with our customers to automate the process flows. So for example, if this is marketing, that could have a whole different set of questions than if it's a technology. So if I scroll down here on my intake form, again, as your requester, as the person submitting this, we can trigger some inherent risk questions, some compliance questions. Is this supplier processing data? Because if they are, okay, we're going to need to involve information security and data privacy and collect their SOC 2. And that's going to affect the workflow, which again, if we can build in the business requirements, that workflow is going to be driven in an automated fashion instead of someone coming in generally from procurement and having to fire off, 15 different reviews and approvals in different parts of the workflow. So what that looks like in practice, let me jump in here, is we provide this, simple, clear visual to the requester, to the stakeholder teams of, okay, what's going on here? What's already been completed? Are there any approvals? What information the supplier is providing? And then finally, what are the risks involved? If we are doing third-party risk and can build that into Graphite, we can help automate that risk review process with some automated scoring and getting the individuals involved to review those key documents before we're getting that set up within the ERPs. So we want to automate as much of this process as possible, not just create a very easy way to change processes around, but get rid of big chunks of that, like validating data that the supplier is providing. We need to check their tax, we need to check their banking information. Graphite is doing all of that in an automated fashion, leveraging AI, leveraging partners, so that the procurement teams can focus on what matters most, right? Getting the most value out of the supplier and the most value for the end customers. So I wanted to move.
As you let me just bring a question up. So Jason's been peppering us in the chat here. I'll bring one of his questions up since it seems like the right spot, right? How does the tool manage parent-child relationships? And what happens if we have a company that's already onboarded and we want to onboard one of the subsidiaries outside of the parent?
Yeah, that's a great question here. So let me jump ahead. Let's see. So we have the suppliers dashboard that I'm going to highlight and use that a little bit to highlight how we manage that. So we've got Adobe here. Obviously, it has a lot of different subsidiaries. So what we will do is allow the supplier to manage those subsidiaries, create those links within the system, and then visualize that for you. So if you're doing business with a lot of these, Adobe subsidiaries, that can tie into, multiple ERP records. That can also involve third-party risk management, right? Are we doing a risk review process for the parent and that applies to the subsidiaries, or do I have to do this 30 times? So we're helping, delineate that, but also allow our customers to do that holistically and have that visibility within the tool. All of this is organized. I'll jump back to this in a second. All of this is organized on a supplier profile. So this really gets to the heart of the data management portion of this, where we are organizing all of the supplier's data in one place. So this is the supplier's profile, right? Where we are bringing together the information that I need from the supplier, as well as information, feedback, scoring, things like that, that our customers, need to keep track of. So for example, got their addresses in here, multiple locations could mean multiple bank accounts. I've got the tax information that we've verified, tax documents that Graphite has verified. And then like we had talked about before, we're pushing to manage those parent-child entities within the system as well. So the last thing I wanted to highlight here, again, we talked about Graphite's ability to validate this information real time. I just wanted to show one example here, around tax information. Everyone has to validate tax information. We're doing this real time, and I actually uploaded a faulty document here just to show what this looks like, where we're checking the legal name, we're checking the tax ID, we're checking the tax documents, and we're going to flag issues and errors real time for your suppliers. So instead of procurement teams having to go back and forth with the suppliers multiple times because, they submitted an incorrect routing number. They submitted, they didn't sign their W-9, things like that. We're making sure that's right the first time. And that's shaving, multiple days off the onboarding process. So once we have all this data and documentation, including risk and compliance information, our customers' teams can provide the feedback and approvals. So including, the scoring, we have this automated scoring so that you can streamline and expedite the risk management process, the collection of documents. So, I have on here diversity, certificates of insurance, SOC 2s, whatever data and documents you need to collect. We're organizing that very easily on the Graphite profile. And also, automating expiration reminders for all this information. So your team's not having to keep an eye on this, year after year, making sure certificates are up to date, documents have been re-uploaded, rescreens are happening. Graphite's making sure, all of that is taking place. So where I want to wrap up with the demonstration of the solution is kind of the final, end view of this, where Graphite is organizing all of your supplier data in an easy to use dashboard and an actionable dashboard, right? I can come in here and filter my supply base for, hey, show me my high risk suppliers, my critical suppliers. Obviously I didn't tee this up. Here we go. We've got Canopy in there, but we allow you to communicate in bulk with these suppliers, ask them to update their information, right? If there were things that expired. But what Graphite is providing, again, is just this 360 view of all the supplier data, documentation, pending tasks, right? Who they're assigned to in your organization on the supplier side, contracts, supplier risk, all this data at your fingertips again. So procurement teams can focus on the strategic values instead of collecting and validating and manually entering data.
So Joel, whether you're using, we have a CLM capability, whether you use our CLM or your own, we can stitch together all these data elements and you get a really cool single pane of glass that tells you all about that supplier. One place to always go to get started, to launch and to understand and manage the supplier. Super cool. We've started adding PO invoice and spend data, so you have the full spend visibility as well.
That's very cool. I think you're probably making a lot of people on the stream dream here. And so as we wrap up this demo, it always looks great on screen, but I'll throw it over to Sheena so we can get real with some tough questions here.
All right, so I'm going to do the one I always ask for specialized solutions. And basically, Conrad, I'm sure you lived this when you were on the buy side, right? You have people peppering down your LinkedIn, peppering down your phone. They find you everywhere to try to sell their technology solution on top of your suite in whatever deployment model that they're trying to push at a given time. And so my question is, why prioritize Graphite? Of anything else you can buy right now, why should CPOs think about putting this on their wish list?
So I've implemented these procurement tech solutions, right? I've been in all of these chairs and done this. And what I've learned over the years is that we all have a transactional tech stack. This is a horizontal stock, or a horizontal flow to optimize the transaction. And this is very one-to-one. I have a PO for you, you have an invoice for me, I have a payment for you, right? It's architected to optimize that flow, and it's awesome. It works. Generally, they work really well. But when you get into supplier management, I look at this as an intersecting tech stack, because supplier management doesn't work well in a one-to-one network. And so many of these technologies were born out of a generation that didn't even, we take for granted Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook like this always existed. 20 years ago, we didn't understand how networks could work like this because we didn't have the technology. And by the way, on the supplier relationship side, Luke showed you how cool we can manage all of these things for you inside of a network in a way that you can't do that in a one-to-one sort of a network. So I'm a big fan of using a core transactional suite or best of breed or whatever you want to do, but those are still going to be one-to-one, and you need a many-to-many tech stack to optimize what you're doing in supplier management. It matters for data, it matters for risk. Like, there's really a few key things inside of your supplier management process that are massively optimized around a many-to-many network.
It's a great transition to my next question, actually, which is around the suppliers themselves, right? They're in this network, that network, this network. They're, as you mentioned, they're in uploading their tin a million times, and they're sick of it. And so what are the key benefits that kind of procurement teams are realizing by making their process and their experience better on the supply side beyond just the velocity? So beyond them just getting paid faster or having an easier time?
Well, it's funny, all of these years, I think not all of us, but many of us have bought into philosophies where we kind of take advantage of our suppliers. I have the money, you do what I tell you to do. And all of these transactional networks that have enforced that, they've actually started charging the suppliers to participate in a transaction. I have to pay you so that I can, like, the whole thing is really weird. We find that since the suppliers get so much value out of moving to a place where they're managing their data in one place, that they really love it. We do NPS scores with our suppliers. We have an NPS score across all suppliers that's above 60. It might be above 65. I mean, that's enormous. We constantly get comments that we love this experience. In the year ahead, we're actually going to use AI to pre-populate a lot of what goes into the profile to make it easier for them.
That's awesome.
We help the procurement teams care about the supplier experience, and believe me, that's the beginning of your supplier relationship. That's the beginning. That onboarding moment is the beginning of your relationship, and you don't want that to start bad, right? We all need to do a better job creating a supplier experience that supports and strengthens the partnership.
Absolutely. Joelle, do I have time for one more? Do we need to wrap? I guess that's wrap. We'll move on. Thank you, Conrad.
I think we unfortunately need to wrap, and you've been pretty tough already. Cool. So, and I think that's a great segue right into the market map. So just Conrad, Luke, I don't know if you want to add anything, right, in terms of, like, we saw the intake management piece, we saw the supplier relationship management piece as well. Be curious to know, like, what's on your roadmap. How do you see yourself fitting into this space? If you have anything to say above and beyond what you so eloquently said to Sheena's question.
I would just say you see a lot of players come into procurement tech in like one capability with an eventual strategy that puts them onto this top row, and they do everything for everybody. I implemented Ariba when it was so freaking focused and so cool. It was the best thing in the world. And our experience with Ariba, all of us, that's kind of changed a lot since the 90s in terms of their focus and their delivery. We will stay very focused on supplier management. We are not going to become a transaction capability. We will continue to build out to the borders of what supplier relationship management really needs and what you need from us as our customers. But that's our focus and that's our future.
Very cool. Very cool. So as we wrap up here, Conrad, Luke, thanks so much for coming on the show. I see I've called out that intake piece because I find, and I keep mentioning it and we keep seeing it, like the biggest opportunities are with the 80+% of companies that have zero ProcureTech today. And so I see, that functionality as being something that differentiates you, right? Being able to handle that intake problem that everybody has. So where can folks reach you if they want to learn more, if they want to dive deeper into the use cases with you and more serious demos?
Drop by our website, graphiteconnect.com. There's more information, white papers, forums, resources. We're here to help you. Ultimately, our goal is to help you be successful and bring value to you and your team and ultimately your requesters and your business. So find us on LinkedIn, find us on the website. We'd love to spend some time with you. And push that vote button for Graphite, right? I want that trophy behind your head there, Joel.
I love it. Thanks so much for thanks for coming on the show, guys. As we wrap up here, just putting the QR code on the screen here. If you want to keep following the journey for the road to the ProcureTech Cup, you can sign up to the Pure Procurement newsletter, where I send you an update every week and some best practices on how to use ProcureTech in your organization. And if you're looking for a service provider, an integrator, somebody to help you along the journey of designing, building, and operating that next gen function with the support of ProcureTech, Sheena and the gang at RiseNow are definitely there to support you in that as well. So having said that, thanks to everybody again for tuning in this week. Thanks to Graphite for coming on the show, and we'll see you again soon.